Hey there, thanks for coming back to finish up the notes for your piecewise functions. So we had just figured out when each of these different functions was graphed. So the first one was from -4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 1. And the next one was 1 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 3. So then what we have to do is we need to figure out what the rule is for this line, and we need to write it up here because this was when we used that rule. So this is a matter of taking a look at this equation and figuring out what is my slope and what is my y-intercept. So if you count this here, my slope here is 1 and my y-intercept is 1. So this 1x plus 1 is our rule for that section. For this next one, we need to figure out the rule for that section. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to calculate your slope. So down 1, right 1. And your y-intercept. Be careful because -1 is not your y-intercept. You need to keep extending your slope until you actually cross the y-axis. So for this one, my y-intercept is going to end up being 0. So my rule for that one is -x. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try another one here. So we're going to go ahead and look at these boundaries. So we can see that these graphs got chopped up on those lines. Now everything to the left here, this graph in red, is when x is less than -2 and it is less than or equal to because of the filled in circle. Everything in between here is in between -2 and a +1. So -2 is less than x. This one is an open circle. And then at 1, it's a filled in circle. So that is or equal to. And our third chunk here happens for everything that is greater than 1. So all of your x values from 1 to the right. So when we are writing our piecewise function for this one, we are actually going to have 3 separate parts. The first, the second, and the third. So this first one is going to be for when x is less than or equal to -2. This next one is for your x values in between -2 and +1. And your third one is for your x values greater than 1. So now all that's left is figuring out what the rule for each of these is. So for this first one, it's a horizontal line. And so all horizontal lines are going to be y equals some number. And that number is going to be whatever, like wherever it crosses your y-axis. So for this equation here, it's going to be y equals 1.5 because it's halfway in between 1 and 2. So our rule here is just 1.5. It's a constant. This middle part, we need to, again, know two things. We need to know our slope and our y-intercept. Our y-intercept here is 0, and our slope, we want to find a nice point and count to the next nice point. So it's up 1 over 2, which makes the blue middle section here a rule of y equals 1/2 x. And our last one, we're going to go ahead and calculate this as well. We need both our y-intercept and our slope. So this is a little bit harder to count because all of these values are not nice values. They're half. But if you go down 1, you still end up going over 1 to get to the next half. So as weird as it is, our slope here is -1. And our y-intercept, if we go up 1 and left 1, ends up being right here at 1/2. So our rule here would be -1/2 at, nope, -1x plus 1/2. So this together would be that piecewise function. So we're going to do one more. This one also has 3 parts. If you're up for it, feel free to pause the video and try it yourself and then come back. Otherwise, if you're still struggling, feel free to stay on here and do it with me. So the first one on the left here is everything less than 1. It's an open circle here, so it's just less than. This middle chunk here is everything in between 1 and 4. And at 1, you have a filled in circle, so it's 1 is less than or equal to. At 4, you have an open circle for the middle chunk, which makes it just less than. And our third chunk here is everything bigger than 4 or equal to 4 because of that filled in circle. So for our function notation, this is one where there's going to be 3 separate parts. The first one is the leftmost one, and then the middle one, and then the rightmost. So we need to find this rule here. Our slope is 1, and our y-intercept is 4. For this middle one, it's a constant, so the slope is 0. So you just use whatever your y value is there. So it's just going to be 2. And our last one, we can see our slope is up 1, right 1. And our y-intercept, again, be careful, it's not -1. You have to keep extending this all the way until it would hit your y-axis. So your y-intercept here would be -5. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this helped. Please let me know if you have any questions on anything.